Hi there, Sandra here from the Schwowin's Nest. Welcome to my channel. Today I thought I would share with you some of my favorite Easter decor DIYs that I've done throughout the years. Enjoy! I've got this canvas that I no longer need. I was lucky enough to have this 8x8 board that fit perfectly right on top of the frame. I'm going to use my staple gun and I've got it outfitted with some brad nails, and I'm just going to go ahead and attach it all the way around. These little brad nails are really short. I think they're only about maybe 1/2 inch to 3/4 of an inch. So I can't use these on really big projects, but for this, it was perfect. Now I'm going to take some chalk paint and I'm going to give the interior a couple of good coats. I want all of that brown to disappear. Now I'm going to paint the outside frame and the interior here, as you can see me doing with black chalk paint. And look at the oops I did. Oh my gosh. Sometimes I get too excited to do my projects and I just had that paint blob right in the middle. Easy fix. I'm just going to go over it with a couple more coats of white. And here you can see it's totally gone. I have a Cricut Joy, and today I created some vinyl decals to put on this sign. As always, this will be available as a free printable on my Google Drive. There's a link down in my description box. I'm going to go ahead and just make sure that this is nicely centered and then apply my decal to make my sign. I decided to add some of this black and white gingham ribbon to the bottom and the top of the sign. I think it just gave it a little bit extra cuteness. I'm using the paintbrush that I used to paint the interior white. It already has some paint loaded on it, so I'm just going to give it a little bit of a flick all the way around the outside edge of the frame, the inside edge of the frame, and then just a little bit on the corners. Add a little bit of even more cuteness to this, I decided to add some white nautical rope. This is the same color, similar to what you can get at the Dollar Tree, but it's a little bit thinner. So I really like this one. I'm going to start at the bottom and then wrap it all the way around the middle of the outside of the frame. And then I'm also going to use a little piece, tie off both ends, and then hot glue those on the top to use as a hanger. If you like what you're seeing so far, I'd love you to consider hitting that subscribe button and joining my YouTube community. It really helps my channel grow. I really love how this sign turned out, and I hope you do too. I'm taking this little candy fruit dish bowl, and I know some of you are going to say, oh my gosh, that's a vintage item. Why are you painting it? Well, I've had it for over a year. It was sitting on my Etsy shop and on eBay for a really long time, and I didn't get any bites. So I'm painting it. Anyhow, this is again my favorite green color, that eucalyptus from Martha Stewart, and I'm just going to paint the top of the bowl for now. It will need a couple of coats. Just before Christmas, I thrifted a whole bag of red beads. I did use them for my Christmas decor, but I'm taking one strand and using it for this project. Actually, this is like 2 feet. Anyhow, I spray painted it black first because they were red to begin with, and if I would have spray painted them white on the red, they would have turned pink. So I did the black, and now I'm doing some white, and then I'm going to also do some green. Next, I took the beads and I hot glued them all around the rim of the candy dish. And I did have to add a couple extras because I just didn't paint enough of the green ones. Now I'm just going to give them a little bit more of a coat of the green just to hide some of that white that you can still see. I have this humongous egg. It's a plastic egg that I got at the dollar store, and it had a soccer ball pattern to it. So I spray painted it black, just like with the beads, and then I gave it 2 coats of white chalk paint. Now I'm going to be adding a little tissue paper transfer. If you've been watching my videos lately, you will know that I am totally addicted to printing on tissue paper. It is so easy and has a beautiful effect. So what I'm doing now is just adding Mod Podge around in a circle where I think my little label is going to go. I always use my paintbrush to pick up the label and place it onto my project, because then I can use my other hand if I need it to help center it. What I'm going to do now is take just a tiny little bit of Mod Podge on my brush and start from the center and push the paper outwards. I wanted the egg to have more of a distressed look, so I'm just taking a makeup sponge with a little bit of that eucalyptus color, and I'm going around the edge of the label and just pulling that makeup sponge out a little bit so it feathers away from the tissue paper. I'm going to do that all the way around, and then I'm going to take a soft brush, do some distressing, but kind of make sort of a stripe design in the egg to make it look like it's been painted as an Easter egg. I'm using this little piece of wood to glue down into the center of the bowl because I need that egg to sit up a little bit higher. I'm also going to be adding a half piece of styrofoam, and that will add even more height. I'm going to take some Spanish moss that I got from the Dollar Tree and just place it around the outside of that little styrofoam ball. I'm going to add some hot glue to the bottom of this egg, which is flat on the bottom, and I'm going to just put it on top of the styrofoam ball and hold it in place until the glue sets. So as I was looking at this piece, I decided that the frosted stem just was not looking like it belonged. So I'm taking a piece of twine from the Dollar Tree and I'm going to start right underneath the bowl, glue that on and wrap it all the way around the stem and partially onto the bottom of the dish. When I looked at this when it was finished, it kind of reminded me of Humpty Dumpty. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. Let me know in the comments what you think. DIY number 1 is using this galvanized pot from the Dollar Tree. And what I'm going to do with this is take a regular kitchen sponge and some chalk paint. This is Martha Stewart chalk paint in the color clay. And I'm going to dab it all the way around the pot. I just want to make sure that the lettering is covered up, but I do want a little bit of that galvanized metal to show through. The reason I'm using the sponge is because I don't want to see any brush strokes. While I wait for the pot to dry, I'm going to mix up some textured paint. I'm pouring in a latex paint. This is just something that I had left over in my house, and I'm pouring it right into a little plastic container that has a screw top lid. As you can see, I save all of my jars, including my pickle jars. They come in really handy because I don't want to have to lug around that big gallon of paint. I just throw it in a pickle jar. I added a couple tablespoons of baking soda. Now with this technique, you want to add a little bit first and then add more if you need it. I found that I did need a little bit more just to get the consistency and the texture that I wanted. Mix it up until it's nice and smooth, but if it gets too thick, you can simply add a little bit of water and then it'll thin out again. For this technique, I am using it a little bit thicker. You can see that when I pounce that brush in there, it's really not making a hole in it. I'm just getting some texture on the brush. This is probably like the consistency of jam. So if you are into jam and you can kind of spoon it out, that's kind of the consistency you want. What I'm doing now is just taking this little brush and I'm pouncing it right on top of the other color, and I'm getting a really wonderful concrete kind of look. I'm getting some bigger chunks here and there and some smaller chunks, and I'm just going to keep going all the way around the pot until I get the look I want. Here's what it looks like so far. You can see the texture and you can see a little bit of the darker color underneath. It's just beautiful. Once the paint was almost dry, I'm taking the same sponge and the same original color, which is the darker color, and I'm just kind of sponging it on because I want to get a little bit of a deeper shade, but I still want some of that lighter color to show through. So I'm going very lightly with my sponge and blending it in. I wanted to camouflage the little skinny handles on this, so I'm taking some of this white nautical rope that I have, and I started by hot gluing a piece of it down, which is what I'm holding with my thumb, and I'm just going to go ahead and start wrapping it all the way around the handles, gluing it in a couple of spots as I go. When I got to the end of the first handle, I decided to continue the nautical rope underneath the rim of the bucket all the way around. This way I didn't have to make any extra cuts to stop the rope, but it also made it look more high end and complete. Where I had to cut the ends, I just kind of let those edges hang down on either side of the handle, but I am taking a little bit of Mod Podge and I'm just going to run it across those edges so they don't fray even more. I have a new obsession, and that is printing on white tissue paper. I take a little piece of tissue paper that's just a touch smaller than the printer paper. I tape it across the top and about halfway down the sides, and then I run it through my printer like usual. And this is what I get, a beautiful little label that I can decoupage right on top of my project. I'm going to use Mod Podge and put a thin layer where my label is going to sit. Then I always use my brush to pick up my little label because they are really thin and sometimes it's hard to just place it right where you want it to be. If you have it on your brush, you can just kind of eyeball it and set it down right in the center. Making sure that I have a little bit of Mod Podge always on my brush. You don't want to have your brush too dry because that will tear the tissue paper. Start from the center and work your way out, gently pushing the wrinkles and the air bubbles out. Now I'm going to blend in the edges of that tissue paper just a little bit. So I'm taking my sponge and I'm taking the lighter color, not the baking soda texture, just the regular paint. And I'm using the edge of the kitchen sponge to just go all the way around and camouflage that tissue paper. I also dabbed just a wee bit on top of the tissue paper where it's black just to show a little bit more texture and distressing. I'm going to be adding some eggs into this, but I wanted to show you a trick. I don't like filling all of my buckets and containers with so much foam or styrofoam that I end up wasting it. So what I do is take an old piece of cardboard, and I always save the sides and the lids from my Amazon boxes. The boxes themselves come in handy, but I always use the flaps for this. I'm going to cut out a circle so it fits into the bucket about an inch down from the top, and then I'm going to hot glue it in place. To camouflage the cardboard, I'm just going to scatter some reindeer moss all over the top of it. I'm not even going to glue it down because I might change my mind after Easter and use this bucket for something else. What I'm doing now is just taking some black paint and a stiff brush and flicking the paint onto the eggs so they get a little speckled. So I've got this sweet little bunny from the dollar store, and I went ahead and glued him down to the cardboard, and now I'm just going to glue the eggs just right onto the moss because they're not really going to go anywhere, but I just don't want any of them to fall out, and I can also then place them where I want them to be. Please excuse my black finger there. I didn't go and wash my hands after I flicked the eggs, and now it looks really awful seeing it here while I'm editing, so I do apologize. I've got some tiny eggs that I'm going to add into the mix as well, and I'm even going to give him one to hold in his little paws. I wanted to put some type of little sign above the bunny's head, so I decided to grab this wood slice, drill a hole in it so it would hold a bamboo skewer. I'm going to go ahead and glue the skewer in, then cover the skewer with some white butcher twine, and then write 5 cents on it and pop it in behind the bunny's head. I think this project turned out super cute. DIY number 2 is using this frame that I picked up at my local dollar store. It was $3. I really love the look of the frame itself, so I'm going to remove the backing, but I'm going to keep the glass in. Using the backing of the frame as my template, I'm just going to place it on a piece of white cardstock, and using my craft knife, I'm just going to cut around the edges to make it the same size. I'm using a ruler and I've just got it pushed out about an inch or so past the edge of the paper. And I'm just using a dry brush, dipping it in some of my favorite new color chalk paint, which is eucalyptus from Martha Stewart. And I'm going to go ahead and just create some stripes all the way across the sheet. Using another color of green, this is Antique Sky from Martha Stewart, and it's a lighter green. I'm going to just go in between the dark green stripes, leaving a little bit of white peeking through. I found this beautiful vintage bunny family on Pixabay.com. I'll have the link for you down in my description box. And I'm going to go ahead and cut this out into a circle and then glue it right onto a piece of black cardstock. I cut the cardstock out as well in the black, leaving about 1/4 of an inch. And now I'm just taking a makeup sponge with a little bit of the eucalyptus paint, and I'm just kind of rubbing it around the edge of the white cardstock. This is just going to give it more of a vintage distressed look, and it'll also just help the white paper to blend in a little bit with that green background. Using my glue stick again, I'm just going to apply it to the back of the black cardstock and glue it into the center of the striped paper. I'm going to place it back into the frame, and this project is done. I hope you enjoyed today's projects and got some inspiration to create some cute Easter decor for your home. I'd love it if you could give me a thumbs up. That gets me noticed more on YouTube. And if you haven't yet subscribed, hit that red button. I would love for you to do that as well. Bye for now.